Well, a very good evening on the 14th of October 25. I've been sitting there listening to myself from, I was going through some old footage from the summer. And back in May I was still injured because of my the blister that I'd experienced on that Dalnaspidal hike. It was more than a blister, it was a bloody hole in my heel. So I was out of action, and anyway, I pick up the story. The reason I'm speaking just now is because listening to the myself giving an account of the story, there's just a couple of hiccups as I'm describing it. So I want to make that clear, and I mean, it's not going to be of interest to everyone, I don't think. But it's just sharing some humorous stories from my different days and different periods of my life. And this one refers to a construction job locally. I worked in a lot of jobs and building sites and stuff as well. I've had a lot of work in my life, a lot of varied types of work. I never specialised in anything. I trained, I'm pretty well qualified actually. I've got a lot of certificates and stuff, but I didn't want to put them to use because I don't like being tied down to a set timing in my life, to be there at a certain time every damn day, and the routine of finishing at a certain time, and just I can't stand it all. So I mean, I mentioned in the story that I've had lots of different jobs, but the purpose of me opening the camera this evening, as I say, is to give some sort of interjection just at the point where I fumble with the story ever so slightly. So you can hear what you think, and then I'll interject. Well, a very good evening from Glentorrent Distillery car park. I'm facing north and I'm pointing at the Shaggy Burn there. There's more fence than there is Shaggy Burn, I'm afraid, but I went out of the car, but I realised you wouldn't hear a damn word I was talking about because of the water. Sometimes small amounts of water in the background, if you're listening to it, can be very relaxing, very therapeutic. But if you're trying to listen to somebody what they're saying, it can be a source of annoyance, especially on audio. But anyway, I came here. I'm parked, as I say, facing north. It's just gone 6 p.m. If I'd been at home, I probably would have listened to the last of the shipping forecast just before the dongs for the BBC Radio 4 6 p.m. news. I was a die-hard fan of listening to long-wave radio, but after June this year it's getting switched off. There's only a few weeks left, and it's a very sad occasion. There's nothing better listening to BBC Radio 4 long-wave. And yes, I've listened to countless hours of the BBC. Well, I sort of got fed up with the BBC about 10 years ago, so I have to say it's not something I do very often now. Listen to anything that they spiel. But it's been a beautiful day, but I'm still in recovery mode. It's taking much longer than I expected, but it is getting there. And it's not a complaint, it's just the fact that it was quite bad. It was a very, very deep abrasion on my heel as a result of the blister. So I've been bathing in salt water and with my feet and changed my dressings about 3 times since last week, and it's done the trick. Salt's very good for anything. A good salt gargle, not that bloody stuff you get out of the supermarket, but proper salt. I use Himalayan salt. It's worth the extra money just to buy it. It lasts forever. And of course salt will last almost an eternity. And I have to tell you that it's good to take in salt. A cup of salted water, boiling salted water, maybe once every 3 months, you feel the benefit. I certainly do. Well, I didn't I didn't drive all the way out here to bloody talk about salt and water. Although I could be doing with a little bathe at the seaside. Maybe not the Scottish coastline, but something maybe a bit more, well, relaxing. Madeira or something like that. Or, no, not Madeira, Andy. I don't know. Somewhere very, very exotic. I fancy a trip somewhere, actually. Needing a break from the routines of bloody cul-de-sac noise. I won't go through the whole list again, but it's bloody awful. There doesn't seem to be much peace anywhere you go these days unless you stick your head into a rabbit hole. And well, what I was thinking, I took a snapshot. This snap, I'll put it up. I took that earlier this evening, 6th of May, 25, because, well, just about every bloody building you look at in my hometown of Crieff, well, it's either been bulldozed to the bloody ground if it's over 100 years old, or it's covered in scaffolding. And likewise, this famous building at the corner, which is once the proud drapery store called Scrimmager's, and its name is Scrimmager's Corner. And my great granny, who I never got a chance to meet because she died in 1949, her favourite spot was somewhere in the Lagan. I found the chair that she used to sit and view, and my granny used to tell me that her mother was very fond of walking out to the Lagan and sitting and watching, well, yeah, she said the horse and carts going up and down Lodge Brae. And I thought, how amazing. And I did find the actual bench. I must try and show you it sometime. Of course, the trees are much higher now, so it's not possible to view, but you can see it on a winter's day if you look close enough. You can hear that white noise even here. It's something to do with the distillery. It's some sort of machinery they use constantly now here. And so everywhere you go, it's bloody noise. Well, it's Scrimmager's Corner, as she said, you can see it, and I remember my first times when I was a child and viewing Scrimmager's Corner for exact location. And it was, by this time, it was, you could see all the cars and buses and all the stuff going up and down Lodge Brae onto Commerce Street and stuff. And so the famous name of Scrimmager's Corner was a result of the big store, but sadly the whole building was set on fire and burnt to the ground in 1978. I think it was January 1978. There was a bloody firebug that used to go around Crieff setting fire to lots of prominent buildings. I think he was rather youthful, and although he was apprehended, he was never prosecuted. Well, at least he's known in public domain as to who he was and what was happening. Whether he was responsible for the same fire in 1978, I don't know. But it was certainly a deliberate fire. And the flames, well, a photographer used to supply to the local newspaper. He was a chemistry teacher, science teacher at the Arvrex. I knew him, but I don't think he's with us any longer. I would have asked him for a photograph, but anyway. So the purpose of me talking about Scrimgeour's Corner and the picture that I put up with scaffolding around it is this property was these flats, which the residential houses were flats, was a result of construction in the early 1990s. 1991, I was working on the construction site. There was a construction company called A.J. Wilson, who were based in Pitlochry. And if I've told any of these stories before, then, well, forgive me, but also, well, that's the way it is. But anyway, I was a good worker. I never really, I think of all the jobs I went to, I always passed my interview, but I never stayed in a job for very long. I didn't like, I found work very tedious. I wasn't lazy, I was a good worker, but I found the whole rhythm of working at one particular, venue or industry for too long was sort of mind sort of bending. And although I have done long spells and many jobs actually when I think about it, but anyway, on this particular occasion I'd got this job in construction, and so I was employed at this Scrimgeour's Corner as they were building. And the money was very good, I have to tell you this. The money was excellent. But the first things that got me was a couple of chaps I worked with. I won't give their names. A bit older than I was at the time. And I remember a lorry came in, and it drove in and tipped all the bloody gravel stuff on the ground. About 3 ton of it, or 7 ton was it? Yeah, it was about 7 ton of the bloody stuff. And 5 minutes later, the other chap says, right, grab a barrel, grab a shovel, Andy, we're going to shift that over there. I said, what was the fucking point of that? I says, why didn't you just get the driver to bloody tip it there instead of us barreling over that, He said, listen, son, we're paid to work, we're not paid to think. I always remember that. We're paid to work, not to think. And that was the first inkling that I didn't want to be in that bloody industry anymore. I thought, crikey, is this the way they think? Well, anyway, so there was a seed sort of planted in my brain. I thought, I'm out for you. Anyway, I was working away. Let's put the picture back up to give you an idea what it. Well, you can't see the bloody building because of scaffolding. But anyway, I remember the bosses came to the site agent was there, and some engineers, civil engineers, some of the head people from the company, plus the architects and stuff, came for a meeting on a Friday afternoon about 2 o'clock. And there was this bloody stone on the grounds, and 2 minutes with a jackhammer, a pneumatic drill would have destroyed that stone in 30 seconds or less. But I just sat with a bloody chisel and a hammer, whacking it, and I could see these men looking over and going, what the hell are we paying that guy for? And what is I just sitting his arse bloody chapping that stone with a chisel and hammer. But anyway, it came to sort of jumping the story just a little bit, but it's important. So it came to the end of the week. It's a Friday afternoon, I mentioned. Anyway, I was popping upstairs to gather my stuff, and at 3:30, and next minute the site agent, the main person, says to me, "Oh, Andy, can I have a word a moment, please?" And I said, "Yeah." And I thought it was about that bloody stone, but no. He says, "Listen, son, if you're not in on Monday, don't bother coming back." I said, all right, okay. And I knew that I'd missed several Mondays. I never made a bloody Monday. I wasn't very good at getting to work on a Monday. But anyway, I said, yeah, fair enough. So on the Tuesday morning, the following Tuesday, just a few days later, I strolled in at 5 minutes to 8. So here's the point I want to interject in the storyline. When I've arrived at the building site at Scrimmager's Corner, it's a Tuesday morning, and it's just before 5 to 8. And I've been advised by two of my work colleagues who've used their fingers, the index finger, and gave that sort of slashing motion across the throat, as if to say, that's your job, fucked. But anyway, I've gone upstairs to put my peace bag. Peace bag is what you carry your sandwiches and your flask in. And I've gone to gather my builder's hat and tools and stuff. As I come downstairs, the site agent has called me in. And what he says to me is, Andy, what did I say to you on Friday afternoon? And I reply, you says to me, if I'm not here on Monday, not to bother coming back, son. So what about you yesterday? Yesterday was Sunday. He says, no, yesterday was Monday, son. I says, no, this is Monday. He says, this is bloody Tuesday. And for a moment I had him sort of a little bit confused himself. So he reached out, I think it was the Daily Star, and he picked up the Daily Star and he held it close to his chin, and then he placed the newspaper in front of my face. He says, it's Tuesday. And I turned around and I said to him, I wondered how the pubs were so quiet yesterday. And that was the end of that job. I left him completely stunned. I grabbed my bag and away I went. And that is absolutely true story. Very true story indeed. Wonderful story, actually. In point of fact, there was a connected story to this as well. This is 1991, about January time, February time. It was the start of the Gulf War. Because I was working at this same place with this mob from Lochry, A.J. Wilson. And as I say, it was good money, but after my work, I like to go and have a couple of refreshments. Well, it's a refreshment followed by 1 or 6 more. And anyway, I was in the old Crown Hotel in Crieff, another one of these damn buildings that have been bulldozed to the bloody ground, or at least this one was converted into modern flats, and it's horrible. In fact, it's not. The whole thing was bloody knocked down. And this cancel culture that happens in Crieff, and the horrible building that's in its place now. But the old Crown, and I used to love the bar downstairs, but I used to love more so the lounge bar. So on this particular occasion I was in after my work, and I was covered in sort of cement, dry cement, lime. But that wasn't a problem to the bartender. And I'm sitting chatting to him from the bar stool. You want another one, Andy? I says, yeah, start your fill. I says, oh look, that's not today's Sun. Well, I said, that's not today's Sun, is it? Meaning the Sun newspaper. And he says, yeah, you want to read? I says, no. I says, but you're worth a bloody fortune if... he says, how do you mean? I couldn't believe this chap. He poured my pint and he put it in front of me, and I went to settle my bill later. But anyway, he picked up the Sun and put it down. I says, look at it. I says, do you know, it was published upside down this morning. He says, you're joking. I says, no. And
I took the I took the newspaper and I turned it upside down to him, so it was face up to me, and I started flicking the pages like this. And as I was looking through like backward, I says, it's completely upside down. Look at the headlines; they're all upside down. This fucking idiot. I mean, he actually believed me. He, it's worth a fortune. He's like, oh, and I'm not joking. I couldn't believe anybody could be so bloody gullible. But that was it, and I remember. And as a form of I just came to my mind. I remember saying to him, for a form of celebration, do you mind if I do a headstand? And I think that's when I pushed my luck too much, because my big cement boots were on the bar and I was standing on my head, all my, my knuckles, and with my head sort of twisted at the bottom of the bar, and my heels were on the bar where my pint was sitting, and they began to get, the bar got stooty. But anyway, so I think that sort of pushed me a lot, because he's right, behave yourself or you're going out, and he got a bit fraught with me, you see. But that's a true story, and I'm absolutely amazed that somebody could be so thick. But I didn't, it's not the sort of thing I sort of took advantage of, and somebody was that sort of stupid. I just done it for a little bit of a bit of a joke, actually, just a bit of fun.